publish the list.
I think I need a better background.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Emerging Futures, What's Next? And this show is about entrepreneurship and how do you make it in the entrepreneurship world. So on this unpredictable road of entrepreneurship, it can be immensely helpful to receive guidance and advice from those who have traveled those roads already. Their experiences, distilled into teachable information, can help the rest of us avoid common pitfalls. Although their advice should be treated as a source of inspiration, not a prescription, you can avoid a lot of useless theory by listening to those who are doers, not simply dreamers. I enjoy finding this type of gems, this type of information, and when I do, I bring them here so that you can hang out with world-renowned business leaders, doling out straightforward, honest advice on matters that matters to all of us. To me, Hangouts are all about real-time engagement, and they don't mean much as a one-way conversation. So as time permitting, I'll be sharing your comments and questions during the Hangout, even if you didn't make it into the film strip. If you want to make it into the film strip, just leave a comment below. Let us know what is the biggest transformation that you would like to see in your life this year, and I'll send you an invitation to join us in the film strip. So let's get started. Today, we are hanging out with Kute Blackson. Hey, Kute.
How are you?
Amazingly well. Kute is utterly unique in the world of human potential. Unlike those who promise to simply help people by get them what they want, his life work instead reveals to people what they have to give by liberating who they are mostly, truly, and deeply. Kute's own background and experience lays out the blueprint for his approach to liberating others, setting their gifts and greatness free. He was born in Ghana, West Africa. His multicultural upbringing as the child of a Japanese mother and a Ghanaian father, raised in London and on 4 different continents. He defies all stereotypes. He is a next-generation world leader out to awaken millions to love and to believing their inspired destiny. I am so excited to share Kute with you today because his story is fascinating and the way that he sees the world is just going to change everything. It's going to transform your life. So let's start with that, Kute. When you and I met in Colorado for the second time, right? When we met in Colorado, you were sharing this amazing story about your parents, and that is something that makes me believe in magic again. So let's dive into that a little bit. Just share it with everybody.
Yeah, I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. Now I live in the US, so I feel like I'm from everywhere. And people often ask me, how did that happen? Ghana, Japan, and it's an interesting. What I will say is, from a very young age, I always felt a deep calling to serve humanity. I remember being age 5 and feeling this sense like my life wasn't my life, that I knew I was here to be of service. And my father is a healer. My first memories as a young boy was that sense of service, that calling, but also I remember being around age 5, age 6, and seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor, being lost in the crowd, this chubby kid lost in the crowd, and seeing this crippled woman crawling on the floor, picking up the sand the man walked on, wiping on her face and standing up. And he didn't even know. He just kept walking. And week after week, I would see the same man who was my father look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, stand up. Or, put his hands on someone who was literally blind and they would see. It wasn't just on television. This is stuff that I, with my own eyes as a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, would see week after week after week after week. So I grew up believing that anything was possible. And it really shocked me.
Because this is important, right? You grow up watching miracles. What we consider a miracle, a guy all of a sudden being able to see, you grow up going like...
For me, that was normal. And it blew my mind because I thought, wow, I would go to school and I'd tell my friends, this is in London, very conservative London. I grew up, I tell my friends, tell my teachers, people would think I was completely crazy. Like, what do you mean? And one day my teacher came to my father had 300 churches, Ghana, West Africa, one in London. My teacher came to my church and she witnessed this herself and she was completely stunned. So for me, what's amazing is I feel like we've disconnected from the miraculous. We've disconnected from the sense of everything is possible. We actually don't. What's amazing is those things are so miraculous when, in fact, I think when we're really in tune with our natural state, when we're really in tune with who we really are, what is so-called seems like a miracle, things tend to unfold effortlessly. So I grew up seeing it. So for me, there were no limits as to this is possible. That I just thought everything was possible, you know. So that was a real blessing for me, believing like there's no limits, everything is possible. So living in that realm, it was interesting. And how my pet, yeah.
So did you ever look at people with challenges and say, dude, I saw a blind man see, what is your problem? Why can't you do blah? Because, you know, I've seen these miracles. Obviously, you can do that. You can transform your life.
You know, I never looked at someone and go, dude, what's your problem? Because I feel like we come in. You know, I think we all come in with our own process. We all come in and incarnate into this life with our own lessons, with our own challenges, whether we're poor, whether we're rich, whether we've been through tremendous trauma, whether we've had intense, crazy parents, whether we're handicapped, whatever it is. I believe we all come in and we incarnate life as a school. So I believe that each and every one of us in our souls, we have a different life lesson, life challenge, life pattern, things to overcome, things to learn, a different curriculum that we are here to evolve and learn through. So I think it's different for each person. So for me, there's never any judgment as to, dude, what's wrong with you? But it's more a sense of, but it's more a sense of feeling like, wow, if you only remembered and knew who you really were. But because I think, you know, society conditions us. We get distracted by the media. You know, we come in these whole and perfect beings as children. We're in touch with the infinite. We're in touch with the source of our being. And then we get conditioned. We get programmed by our parents who are just doing the best that they can, by our grandparents, by our media, by society, by school, you know. And now in this day and age as a child, there's like 5,000, you know, social media channels and cable channels and, you know, radio stations. There's so many distractions that condition us, program us, hypnotize us, seduce us, and ultimately disconnect us from who we really are. So we start believing and we get reinforced. We start believing that we're just this skin color, this body, this gender, this limited package, these, you know, these beliefs that we're being downloaded from generations. We're not enough. You know, media is constantly advertising, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're limited, you're not enough. However, if you just buy this, you know, statue, if you just wear this underwear, then you'll be lovable. If you just wear these socks, my God, then you'll be enough. And we get constantly sold, and so that disconnection from our true source is what kind of depresses us. And it's not like it's gone anywhere, but we get depressed, and that's when the seeking begins. We start seeking for love, seeking for validation. So as children, we're in touch with this essence. We then learn all sorts of ways as a child, maybe dealing with our crazy parents or in an intense situation, a trauma, abuse, whatever our circumstance was, because we all went through challenging things as children growing up, you know. Yeah. We start learning a certain way of being in the world. Two things. We learn we learn a certain strategy or mechanism to contort ourselves to avoid pain, to avoid the pain of what was going on, and we start shutting parts of ourselves down to ultimately survive and cope. So we disconnect. Then we also start going out into the world and we start developing a mask, a persona. We start creating a character, a way of being to kind of get love. Who do I need to be in order for you to love me? Will I be nice? I'll be this. I'll say yes. And we start creating a way of being in the world to get love and validation and approval. So these two kind of modes, you know, disconnecting from pain, managing that, being loved, we start creating a sense of me. This is who I am, a character that we call ourselves. And we think that this version of ourselves is really who we are. And you'll often hear people say, it's just who I am. The reason I'm doing that is just who I am. But we don't realize that we've been so programmed. We don't realize that we've been so programmed that we're actually not choosing. Many times we think we have free will, and we think we're choosing and creating our lives, but we're not really choosing. We're being run by the past conditioning and programming. And people that say, well, oh, I have free will, if you often look at least my life and many of our lives, if you look at some of the choices we made, you have to ask yourself, if I was truly free, would I have chose that person to be in relationship with? You know, if I was truly free,
About that.
would I have really made that decision if I was really free? So I'd say the degree to which we are programmed is the degree to which we're not really free to choose. So for me, part of transforming, because part of what we're talking about today is transformation. Part of transforming is we have to become aware of our programming. We have to become aware of the fact that we are programmed and our conditioning, and perhaps who you think you are, who we think we are, is not necessarily who we are. So I think we have to start investigating that, and I could go on and on, but
Yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, let me put it in. But you know, you touched on something very important. You touched on love, and love is a major thing that you're, keep talking about, keep asking people to like, what will happen if you were not afraid to love truly?
yes.
What would your life be, right? Like, what if you loved without expecting anything back, just for the joy of love, right? And you have amazing videos about that, but I want to go back a little bit for a second to your parents, because we're
Yes.
all looking for our soulmates,
Yes.
and we're all going through all this rigmarole of finding our soulmates and then
Oh,
going
yes.
through couple counseling and all that stuff. Blah, blah, blah. So your parents' story is amazing, because the way that they went about finding each other, and one is in West Africa, one is in Japan,
Yes.
the way they found each other is
Sure.
fascinating. So share that.
I have a few things to say, as you know, about relationship and love. It's the basis of my work. Let me share the story, because that's kind of how the first question you
Yeah.
asked. It's an amazing story. In a nutshell, otherwise we'd be here for 17 hours. But the story goes like this. My father, when he was around age 8, would have these visions of a Japanese. Oh, there's my parents. My father would have these visions of a Japanese guru, and this guru was like a Yogananda figure in Japan, an amazing man. And he'd have these visions at age 8. And in these visions, this Japanese man would tell my father about the mysteries of life and the purpose of life, and would teach my father. Fast forward, my father was about 15. He had an experience where he decided to become basically, he fell down on the floor, saw the light, started healing people. His churches exploded as a 15-year-old kid. Over the next 20 to 25 years, built literally 300 churches, hundreds of thousands of followers, got married. His first wife died when I think he was in his late 20s, early 30s. And one day my father is in Ghana, this is in the mid 70s, in Ghana, West Africa, and he is in a store, a book falls off the shelf. And, sometimes when things happen, it's sort of God's way, life's way of giving us a clue. And I think it's important that we pay attention to the clues, because the universe is always speaking to us. So he paid attention to that clue. He looks at the back of the book. He sees the Japanese man who had been coming to him since he was age 8. And he was completely shocked, because he didn't know that this guy was a real guy who would just come to him in his dreams. So he basically writes to this man in Japan. And this man, acknowledges it, and he sends his son-in-law to meet my father in Ghana, West Africa. That's my father, that's my mother, after they got married, the picture you're seeing. And so he sends his son-in-law to meet my father. The son-in-law comes to Ghana, sees my father's work, is so blown away. He invites my father to Japan on a lecture tour. He wants my father to lecture on miracles and the nature of miracles. My father says yes, but he also says, look, I believe in the power of prayer. And he says, can you pray for me, because I'm looking for a wife? And he says, sure. So the Japanese son-in-law goes back to Japan, gives a lecture prior to my father coming.
Wow.
In his lecture, he announces that this guy from Africa is coming to Japan, and he gives the dates. Now, my mother, her parents and my mother grew up in this spiritual organization that belonged to this Japanese guru. Okay, so my mother grew up in the spiritual organization, meditating in a very spiritual community, and she was about 28, 29 at the time. Now, if you know anything about Japan, especially in the 70s, mid 70s, if you're not married by like 21, 22, you are old. Okay, so she's like 28 at the time, 29, not married. She's had many proposals, turned them down. She's finally, about to give up. But her one prayer was this: she says, God, I will marry anyone you tell me to marry. I'll marry anyone completely. Just make it clear to me when I meet my soulmate, when I meet my life partner. Just make it clear to me, and I will be obedient, and I will marry this person. Make it clear. She's in the audience listening to this Japanese the son-in-law, share about my father. She says she felt chills through her entire body, and she knew that this African guy who she'd never met was her husband. Cut long story short, she writes a letter to my father. The letter gets routed to London. My father happened to be in London for a few weeks preparing to go to Japan on his lecture tour. He's meditating at the same time. In his meditation, God says, your wife will come to you tomorrow. Now, he's thinking, how's my wife going to come to me tomorrow? I'm in a strange country. He goes to the mailbox the next day. There is a letter from Japan. He says his hand, before he even opens it, his hands start to shake, and he says, this is my wife. He opens it. It's a letter from my mother. Nothing romantic. All it says is, look forward to hearing you speak. He writes back to her. Now, this tells you a lot about my father. Pretty courageous guy. He made his move. He writes back and he said, would you be open to moving to Ghana? I mean, kind of a proposal, right? And she writes back and says, if it's God's will. He writes back and says, it's God's will. Now, you got to understand, no Facebook, no internet, no nothing. They agreed to get married without even meeting each other. You could say their souls were destined to meet, and I believe that, on some level, our souls have already destined to meet who we're truly meant to be with, our life partners, way before we even meet. So they had a soul agreement. They acknowledged that agreement and were in alignment with that agreement. So my father goes to Japan, meets my mother for the first time. She can't speak English. He can't speak Japanese. And, it's a little traditional, so they're not really allowed to spend too much time together. It's a little old school. So they're given 45 minutes together alone, like in a room where everyone else is next door. And, he points to him and she nods. Now, before he went to Japan, he said, God, I would like double confirmation that this woman is my wife. Give me a vision. At least let me see a visual of this woman. And so he has a dream of her, and he says, I'm going to make a Ghanaian dress. If this dress is a kente cloth that either it fits or it doesn't, it's not this flowy thing, it's this knitted silk dress. He says, if this dress fits this woman, that's a guarantee that this is my wife. So he meets my mother, and he says, here's a gift for you. And she's like, thank you. He's like, no, I need you to try it on. Sure enough, she tries the dress on. The dress fits. He says, okay, this is my wife. One last thing. He's challenged because my father at that time, especially by Japanese standards, wasn't very wealthy. It's Ghana, third world country. He had some money for Ghanaian standards, but, in the 70s, there's no way you can go to Japan and marry a Japanese bride, completely different culture, different country, all of that stuff, breaking all the boundaries. And there's no way you can go take a bride and not throw down a Japanese wedding with some sushi and some sake. So the challenge is the man has no money. He's like, God, what do I do? What do I do? He prays. God says, just chill. Just chill. Relax. Many times we're given a vision. Many of us, we have visions, we have dreams, but we start going to, how am I going to make it happen? How will I do it? How? I believe that when you have a vision, for those listening, entrepreneurs, visionaries, if you have a vision, if you have a dream, encoded in every single dream is also the seed for its fulfillment. And I believe that it's not us that actually choose our dream. Our dream is an intelligence that actually chooses us, because based on our life experience and every single thing that's ever happened to us, we are the perfect vehicles to bring that dream, we're the perfect consciousness to bring that dream into physical manifestation. So that dream actually uses us, but we often get into how. So my father says, okay, I'm going to trust. 6 weeks later, he's still in Japan, he goes to his mailbox, and he sees an envelope. He opens the envelope and he sees $6,000 to $7,000 in US dollars in cash. This is in the mid-70s. This is quite a lot of money back then. Yeah. And there's a note that says, this is for your wedding. Anonymous. No name, nothing. This is for your wedding. And he didn't tell a soul. So happened, he found out over a decade later, there was a Japanese supermarket mogul who read about this wedding in the newspaper because it was all over the news. And basically him and his wife were guided to make a donation to my father just randomly. So I believe that when you truly follow the impulse of your dream, of your vision, whether it's writing a book, whether it's starting a company, whether it's doing a podcast, whether it's launching a Google Hangout show, whatever it is, I believe that when you follow that dream, it has an intelligence. And many times we think we have to know every element of how it's going to unfold, what's going to happen. We have to have a whole plan. But I believe our dreams are bigger than us. And when we truly trust that intelligence, life unfolds through us in ways. And I think what's important is that we take the next step. 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 And you don't have to know. My father and my mother went into the unknown. And I believe that your freedom is determined by the degree you can relax into the unknown. And even though your mind might not know, many times I've seen that people are trying to set goals, with their mind. You know, oh, I want this, I want the car, I'm going to get married in 6 months, this is going to happen. But our mind itself, as we were talking about, is conditioned. You know, so if you're going to set the dream for your life with only your mind that is conditioned and programmed by limitation, you end up you might live a great life, but you'll often live a limited life. But if you drop deeper beyond the mind and listen to what it is that's actually, first, uncondition yourself, which is really the nature of my work, uncondition, unprogram yourself so you can really, you know, loosen the grip of conditioning that we've tended to, you know, grip around to survive. As you loosen that, the life force energy of life can begin to flow effortlessly, fluidly through you, and the intelligence that is breathing you, breathing me, breathing Paul, breathing, you know, breathing Mother Teresa, breathing everybody, you know, Barack Obama, Oprah, Bono, you know, an ant, a dog, everybody, that intelligence knows how to fulfill itself. It knows how to fulfill itself through you and I, but we must trust bigger than our minds, bigger than ourselves. And what often happens, last thing I'll say is, what often happens when we trust that deeply, when we get ourselves out of the way of the flow of life, what often manifests, the people that often show up, is often way beyond anything we could have affirmed, visualized, stuck on a poster board, is often beyond that. It's great to have an intention, but something more powerful happens. And I think life was here before us, is living us, and will be here after you and I are gone. So I think, are you going to trust your mind, or are you going to trust life?
So I love that, Kute, because I so resonate with everything you said, because my life, especially this year, is just you know, this is it. It's like the people that showed up in the last 2 months after I made a decision to do something I was terrified of doing.
Yes.
Completely changed my life. But before we dive there, let me just share a few of the comments. First of all, guys, thank you so much for commenting. I love that you're loving this. Virginia says, I believe that we are never disconnected from our source. It is the source of life. So people are so resonating with everything you're saying. Cheryl is saying, loving for the joy of love. Holy crap, I needed this HOA today. I love that. And then another one is, another from Cheryl, hold on, that the challenge is, it's like, how hard is it to implement? And we'll dive into that, Kute, because I think this is one of the hardest things. It's like, yeah, we say that loving for the sake of love, for the joy of love, is what we want to do. But how hard is it to implement that, right? The responses, Robin, love this love story. Christine, that I'm trying to get you into the Hangout. Wow, what a powerful story. Karen is here. She's saying, good evening, everyone. Hi, Karen. Love seeing you here. And then Sha, am I saying your name right? So true. Our dreams have the answers. And also Virginia saying, I love that our dreams are bigger than us. Relax into the unknown. So let's dive into that a little bit. How do you relax into the unknown? Because like you said, you know, I'm a mother and I have a 5-year-old, and it is the hardest thing to raise him without my own prejudice, right? So how do you do that? And our parents did the same with great intentions, and our teachers and everybody in society, great intentions, but they conditioned us to think very limited. How do you break away from that?
We must acknowledge that we've been conditioned, we've been programmed, and see, every single thing that happens in our lives from the moment we're born. Every single memory, every smell, every scent, every abuse, every word, you're this, you're not that, all of this stuff, conscious and unconscious, we're picking up. And our nervous system, which is the antenna to the world, is picking up every single impulse of everything, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. It's stored deep in our unconscious, deep in the nervous system. So every single thing that happens to us is stored in our nervous system like a little, you know, memory. So the nervous system being the antenna to the world, we go out into the world, and we look around, and information comes in, and it gets filtered by the lens of our nervous system. So if our nervous system is full of stuff, junk, so to speak, full of programming, what we are going to see and our prejudices and what we're going to perceive is not going to be actually reality. It's what we're actually imposing onto reality that's determining a reality that may or may not be there. So I think the great responsibility that we all have, if we want to transform our lives, is not necessarily to try and, which is often what we do, we try and change all the outer circumstance. But I feel like first we have to start by transforming ourselves, questioning our minds, questioning our beliefs, questioning and looking inside to our own conditioning and clearing that. The greatest gift I think that you can do as a mother, as a parent, is the greatest gift you can give your kids is your own beingness, your own example, how you live your life. And one of the greatest gifts you can give to them, otherwise, I've seen so many parents pass on their programming from their grandparents to themselves. They just pass on unconsciously. Kids often play out your own unconscious, is heal yourself, transform yourself. As you heal and transform yourself, you create a clear space so that when your children look at you, and when you look at your children, you don't project onto them your imprint and your conditioning, but there's a clear space. So when they look at you, they get to see who they really are in the reflection of your presence. Not simply.
How do you do that, Kute, though? How do you get to a point where you're like, dude, this is my first child. I messed up many things in my life.
Yeah.
How do I trust myself to be a great guidance?
Sure. Look, I'm not a parent, but what I do believe is we all incarnate. And I do believe that there is, everyone has lessons. So the soul, your child has lessons. So on some level, if we could say it this way, your child, her soul, right, picked you for a reason. You're the perfect parent, you're the perfect soul to teach this child the lessons they need. And I don't think there's any way to do it perfectly. There's no way to be a perfect human being. Even to me, the goal of life is not to be a perfect personality. If you're looking for perfection at the level of the persona, at the level of the mind, at the level of the body, you will never find perfection at this level. I mean, ultimately, it's all perfect, but the deepest, in this reality, in this world, everything is transitory, everything is changing: creation, birth, destruction, falling apart, relationships falling apart, birthing, everything, pain, suffering. It's just life. So if you're looking for perfection at the level of the persona, the level of personality, it doesn't exist. You won't find it. To me, the real perfection is at the depth of our own being, which is that unchanging source of our own spirit that we don't really get disconnected from, because source is all that is, but sometimes the inherent remembering gets covered up. So part of our job is to peel those layers away, to clear away the feelings, the emotions, the pain, the anger, fear, sadness that as children we felt that we learned to stuff down, we learned to disconnect from, and as we do that, we shove those into parts of our bodies, into our psyches that then cover up the source from shining. So I think part of what we're here to do, first we have to acknowledge that we're conditioned. Because many times we're not aware. We're just living our life, going to work, doing what we're doing, thinking, no, it's just who I am. I am this way because it's me. So I think we have to start questioning, is this really you? Or is it? Let me give you a specific example of a client I work with. I had this incredible man I work with. I took him to India, okay? And I'll never forget this guy. This will give you an example. I had a guy who for 55 years was living a life, living a certain way. His entire identity was, I'm a shy person. I'm just quiet. I'm shy. Married a woman who was very outgoing, very out there in the world, and very gregarious. And his whole thing, I'm just in the background. I don't like being in the spotlight. I'll just stay in the background. But he had so many dreams, so much he wanted to fulfill. And when I met him for the first time, I looked him in the eyes and I said, "You're lying. you're acting, who you're being. Basically, I said, you're full of it. Okay, in a more direct way. And he said, what do you mean? I said, you're acting, you're lying. You are a lion that is acting as a mouse. And as I worked with him and asked him some questions, probed and poked and got him to feel certain things that he had learned to suppress, I asked him a few questions. And he came back with tears in his eyes as he reflected on those questions for a few hours. He says, "Could I've been crying for the last few hours?" I said, "Why?" He said, "I had a memory that I completely disconnected from and forgot." He said, "I had a memory that when I was 5 years old, I was sexually molested by my uncle. And I couldn't even remember this at all." And he was crying, and there was so much grief that he didn't know he had, that he had learned to suppress. And as a result of that moment, you see, as a 5-year-old kid, he was bright, he was light, he was, a child would jump on a table and freely express and dance and sing, and until we get told not to, or until we're screamed at, or until we're laughed at, we start to slowly, shrink ourselves, hide our light. So as a kid, this 5-year-old, something happened that really should not have happened. Something happened that really was not okay, was not appropriate, was not cool, that occurred, okay? And as a kid, unconsciously, it wasn't like a conscious thing, he learned to shut down, disconnect, and he learned on some level that being out there, being seen is dangerous. Being seen is not safe. When I'm seen, bad things happen. So unconsciously, as a survival mechanism, the way he coped with that was to disconnect, shut down, become shy. His survival mechanism became living life in a way where he was hiding. Yeah. And many people are hiding. And he justified that by going, well, I'm just shy. So he married a woman that was the outgoing person. So he was in the background. So, and he never really understood why he had dreams and he had a vision and he wanted to make an impact, but why he was too afraid to step out into the world. He never really understood, why do I keep sabotaging myself? Why? Well, because ultimately, to be successful, in a sense, getting your work out there in the world, a book, a show, what have you, means you're going to be seen. And people might judge you, things might happen. But in his mind, there's this unconscious wiring, being seen is dangerous. Because when I was seen, this thing happened. So his way of protecting himself was to create an identity of hiding, which was ultimately his survival. And that was, there was a positive intention there. And what served him as a survival tactic, which is what many of us do, ways of being that served us as children, we often take into our adulthood and start playing those ways of being out in our relationships, in our life, in our job, that often block the free expression of source that is trying to fully live us. So it's almost like we've contorted ourselves into this shape to navigate our parents and our life, and we wonder why life force, which is always present, it can't quite flow freely. So it's a process of questioning, unraveling, feeling the feelings that we've learned to not feel, to grieve, to feel the anger, the shame, the resentment, the sadness, to clear that stuff which is often so buried inside that we've learned to survive and to release that.
I hear you say two things. One is that either we need to know what to ask ourselves, or we need to have someone experienced in questioning us, like yourself, to take us through this. But the other thing that I hear is that we need to be in a safe place to allow ourselves to go through that pain and that shame, and like have some kind of a support. Because I'm assuming if someone starts questioning the core of their being and comes up with stuff that they might not be able to deal with or make sense of or go through, I think that will actually destroy more than raise, right?
I don't think it will destroy, because I think I really believe that our spirit, our human spirit, is indestructible, and there is a strength that is at the core of our being that is powerful. What we are capable of as souls, our spirits is powerful, But for sure, I think, as we've become identified with a version of ourselves, as we've become identified with being the nice guy, the nice girl, because we learn to be nice and say yes because that's how daddy loved me, or that's how I got bluff from my, my friends at school, and that gets reinforced, and then we go. I'll give you an example. I had another. This will really, I think, hone in. I had an amazing client, woman, who came to Bali on one of my journeys, and this woman. Her parents weren't around, and no great abuse happened. I mean, her parents loved her, but in a certain sense, they weren't present because they had to work a lot. So on some level, she didn't have the time and the emotional connection, the emotional support that she needed as a child. So on some level, because it was painful to not feel that, she learned to shut down a part of her heart and emotion from needing, in a healthy way, to need someone, to rely on someone, because I can't rely on my parents because they're not really present emotionally for me, not because they don't love her, just life, Yeah. So it wasn't like she was beaten or something happened, it was just life. So as a child, she learned to disconnect that feeling part of herself, because to feel the not presence of something that's needed is painful, and you could say unconsciously, she learned to become incredibly independent. She became super independent, self-sufficient. I don't need you, I don't need anyone, I'll do it myself. And she became one of the most high-performing achiever entrepreneurs on the planet. But she came to me saying, Kute, I've become so successful, but I'm single. and I don't understand why I'm not really in a relationship and what that's about, because to be in a relationship is to be vulnerable, to open your emotion, to open your heart, to allow yourself to, in a healthy way, to need, to be vulnerable, to be in relationship. But she created and this way of being super independent is the very mechanism that enabled her to go out into the world, create a huge corporation company, because she didn't, need anyone. So she was very strong. So that very mechanism that helped her survive, function, and be successful in the world was also the very thing that was actually limiting her ability to open her heart and be receptive and need in a healthy way, in a sense, to just invite a male presence into her life, because there was a part of her heart that she wasn't even aware, even though she read all the books and Manifest Your Soulmate this and Get a Man Here and How to Get the Art of Marriage and what have you. She read all these books, but there was a part of her unconsciously that was not fully available to love. Because
so how do you become available to love, Kute? How do you do that?
First step for her was awareness. She was not even aware that that's what she was doing. So to kind of answer your question before too is, it can be a little scary to become aware. It can be a little scary to feel the vulnerability, because it means a certain sense of letting go of who you've been, letting go of a whole way of being. That's a survival mechanism that blocks the full expression of who you really are. So there is a vulnerability. There is sometimes oh my God, I'm dying. The old me is dying. But I believe that, yes, the old you might die, but it allows for, I'm not even going to say the new you, but it allows for the you that you've always been all along, that you and I can feel deep down. Like we can feel like, God, there's more of me, there's more. We can feel who we really are that is seeking to emerge, and sometimes the old egoic persona needs to fall apart so that more of who we are can emerge and express itself.
So this is actually part of the stuff that we said we're going to talk about. Discovering, you basically laid out why we sabotage our greatness. This is basically, it's to protect ourselves from stuff that,
survival.
Survival, right? Yeah. And the next step that we said that we're going to talk about is that you're going to share with us a process, a step-by-step process that we can transform our life and overcome any limiting patterns that we think are, protecting us, but are really not helping us live.
Yeah, so what I'll say is, I don't know if there's like a systematic formula, because every single person, honestly.
What? Hold on a second. There's no pill? There's no magic pill that we can take? What?
I would love to say there's a pill, you do this, but every human being, in fact, is so unique. And all of our stories are, they've come together in a different way. So for me, the goal of healing ourselves is not to perfect our personalities. Like, wow, if I do this process and this process and this process, then I'll finally get to a place on the mountain where I'll have no more issues and I'll never feel any sadness or fear. No, we are evolving human beings. That I think what's important is that we first must become aware, because we are often not aware, especially in those beginning stages. Then we must be willing to feel those unfelt feelings, those emotional densities, those things we have suppressed that are clouding our essence, our source that's already there from shining, from revealing itself. And many times we're depressed because we've learned to suppress so much inside. We've become, emotionally blocked, constipated, so to speak, emotionally, that it's blocking our full expression. So we have to become aware and be willing to feel these things and then let them go. Sometimes we become so, I've seen that sometimes, even though we become aware, we also sometimes become so used to ourselves as a certain person. We become, let me give you an example. I work with this amazing woman, this will hopefully make it clear, who, as a child, she got sick a few times. And she figured out, unconsciously, but wow, put 1 and 2 together, she figured out, when I'm sick, I get attention, I get love, I get validation, I get wow. And when I'm weak and sick, my parents dote on me and love me. And so she learned to be sick. In sick, we could, insert playing small, whatever you want to put in that as a symbol. She learned to be sick as a way of being, and she actually confessed to me that she faked being sick 80% of the time. One time she faked being sick like for 3 months, and she wasn't. This is when she was in her teens, because that's how, the hospital visits and going here and the attention from her father, and like, wow, this is kind of, so she was faking being sick, and she'd been carrying the shame of faking being sick for her entire, like, 20 years after that, till she was in her 30s. And that shame was eating her up. That shame was part of what was causing her to sabotage and punish herself because of this cycle of shame. So firstly, she had to become aware of that. She had to confess that. She had to let go of that and actually forgive herself and feel the feeling, so that, whatever we feel, we actually get to release and let go of. And she became clear, like, wow, part of why I've been doing what I've been doing is to get love and attention. And on some level, she couldn't afford to step into her power. She couldn't afford to, at least that's how she had it wired in her mind. If I step into my power, how am I going to get love and approval and attention and validation? So, so there's this conflict inside. But as she healed, as she let go, she realized that there was another way to give that to herself, that she had to learn to love herself. She had to learn to give herself that unconditional loving and strength. And that's what enabled her to become conscious and aware, so she could then step into her power and step into her greatness. And she realized, I don't have to fake sick, play small, hide, be weak, so that men, so that friends, so that people love me. So I think we have to have the courage, once we're aware, to let go, because sometimes we get comfortable being a certain person. We get comfortable relating a certain way. We get comfortable people relating to us a certain way. That it takes courage to feel what we've been avoiding feeling and to let that go, so that we can find out who we really, really are and have been all along.
So I want to share more of the comments because they're amazing. They're coming in amazing. And then I have another question about relationships. So I hope I don't forget that one first. Sure. But Juan says, I felt related to that. I apparently am becoming very good for a similar mentality, that I can take over the world on my own and that I don't need anyone, but I'm very lonely if I think about it.
Thanks, Juan. That's very honest. It takes courage, it takes courage. I say the first step to transformation is to be aware. But to be aware, you have to tell the truth. And many times I've seen what stops people from transforming is we are constantly bullshitting ourselves. We are constantly lying to ourselves over, and we're deceiving ourselves to keep a certain comfort zone of who we know ourselves to be. So it takes a lot of courage to really be honest as to what we feel, why we are the way we are, to be honest about, okay, I hate my job, and I'm afraid to leave because if I leave, I'm afraid how am I going to survive? So, just the willingness to be honest about this is where I'm actually at without judgment. Because many times we start being honest and we say, oh, what's wrong with me? As we start judging ourselves. But you can't change something that you're not being honest about. And I think it takes real courage to be that ruthlessly, in a good way, honest with this is where I'm at. I'm in a relationship where I'm being dishonored, it's not working, I'm miserable, I'm not happy, I don't love my husband, but I'm actually afraid to leave because how will I survive? Because what will my parents think? Because whatever the excuse is, and just to start being honest, because sometimes we're afraid to say, I'm actually unhappy. Because, if I acknowledge that I'm actually unhappy, if I acknowledge that I hate my job, if I acknowledge the truth, then what? So many times we kind of create a whole confusion. What keeps people stuck too is we play a game called I'm confused, and it's called this sort of I don't know game. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel. I don't know what to do about. I don't know if I love him or. The bottom line is often we do know. If you put a gun to our heads, the truth will come out in 2 seconds. We do know. We must have the courage because life is short. Every single second we waste. When I say you, I mean everyone, me, everybody, that we waste in relationships that are toxic, that don't honor us, in a job that sucks your soul, that destroys, just sucks the energy out of you. Every single second that we waste holding on to old resentments of what happened, what someone did, what your parents, that you hold on to that unnecessarily is a wasted moment. You are killing life. And when we die, because that moment will come and none of us know when that moment will come, none of us can look God in the eyes, whatever we believe, and say, God, I'm sorry, but you took me a little early, and can I get a refund on those last 3 years where I was resentful? If I'd known I was going to die this soon, I would have forgiven. None of us know. None of us know. So I think we have to give ourselves that gift of being ruthlessly, and I say ruthlessly like a samurai, like a warrior, just no compromise, honest about this is where I'm at, and deal with that, Then, if you can say, well, I'm afraid, I'm not in love anymore, and it's scary because this is all I've known with my relationship. And at least if you're not willing to do something about it, now you can burn in the truth of, I'm not in love anymore. And then the truth can begin working. The truth can begin working on you. Because once you tell the truth, there's no going back. It might take 10 years, it might take 15 years, but it's there. And many times, because we don't want to feel the truth, we distract ourselves. Let me do Facebook, let me drink, let me shop, let me do all these things to just, I don't want to hear the truth. But the truth will set you free. Yeah. And often, because we're not willing to tell the truth, we then start complicating our lives unnecessarily, doing all sorts of, silly things unnecessarily, so to speak. But on one level, it's simple, I have an analogy. I hope I can say this on your show. Forgive me if I can't. But here's the spiritual wisdom of the day. If you eat shit, it's going to taste like shit, and you will feel like shit. And many times we go to the therapist and go, oh, why do I feel like shit? Because you ate shit. So the deep wisdom is if you don't want to feel like shit, don't eat shit. But our conditioning is what's often constantly causing us to reach out. We get addicted to suffering. We get addicted to certain patterns. So we must become aware, and have the courage to make different choices.
Last night I watched the movie The Gambler, and Jeff Goodman, I think, is there, and he goes like, you want to get to the point in life where it's called the fuck you point, where anyone, says hey, you need to wake up at 8 in the morning, fuck you. Hey, I want to do it, fuck you. Like, you want to get to the point where it's like you only do the things that you enjoy doing because you want to do it, not because you feel obligated, not because it's like going to make someone happy. It's like, the fuck you point.
But
So it sounds like the same thing you're saying.
no, I want to make clear. It's interesting you say. I want to make clear on.
Oh, you don't like the F word? What happened?
I would like to say though that what's important is, you know, the real freedom is, you know, it's one thing to rebel. I just want to make clear, you know, because sometimes the fuck you can be a rebellion of something we're
No, no, no. I didn't
resisting.
mean it in that way.
I know, but this is something I've been thinking about, you know, that the real freedom is really being in touch with who we really are, you know, and letting that move us, letting that lead us, letting that express. You know, so I often say, to me, it's not about life isn't so much about. There's so many books that will teach you to get what you want. You know,
Hmm.
you've read them, we've all read them. Get what you want, get what you want. The man you want, the car you want, the house you want. Manifest, get what you want, get what you want. And many times, you might even manage to strategize your life and get what you want, or at least I'll say, in fact, what you thought you wanted based on who you thought you were. But if you're not in touch with who you really, really, really authentically are, then what you think you want isn't going to be what you really want. And when you get what you thought you wanted, often you'll find yourself unfulfilled, miserable, empty-handed, going, this is not making me happy, because we're not in touch with who we really are. So for me, the real question is not necessarily what do I want and how do I get what I want. The real thing that and the process of life is getting in touch with who we really are beyond our conditioning, which is really what we've been talking about, unraveling, peeling away the layers so we can reconnect with who we really are. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much we get in life, you know, as business people, entrepreneurs, no matter how much money, or on and on, we will all die. And none of it, nothing. That's the bottom line. Bill Gates is going to die, and the homeless person on the street is going to die. They will die the same. I was in Egypt many years ago, and one of the first times I went there, I went into Tutankhamun's, you know, the Great Pyramid, and they said this is where Tutankhamun, you know, put all of his gold. And then I went into the Cairo Museum, and on one of the floors, I saw an entire floor. Like it was like huge. I mean, like this huge floor filled with actual artifacts of Tutankhamun's throne and his, you know, his rings and his bling and his, you know, headpiece and all of Tutankhamun. I mean, it's like billions of dollars worth of Tutankhamun's gold. And it hit me. Where's Tutankhamun? His gold is here.
Yeah.
Tutankhamun's not here. So I always say that no matter what we achieve in the physical world, what we attain, what we get, number one, there always reaches a point of dissatisfaction. You remember that time where, you know, you wanted that car so much and you got the car, and after, you know, a week or a month, it's like, whatever. You know, you wanted that thing, or it's like, you know. So there's always a point of getting. We'll reach to a point of dissatisfaction, and I think that point of dissatisfaction is not a bad thing. It's actually a sign of growth, that we have outgrown that thing, that level. So to me, life is not simply about getting, but it's ultimately getting who we really are and giving who we really are. To give our gift, our authentic gift, not our conditioned gift, we must know who we are. And to me, the real purpose of life is to wake up to who we are. We're born to wake up and remember who we've been all along, our true essence, our true light, our unconditioned essence.
We have great comments actually in the stream, and then we'll jump to the people in the Hangout. Jeffrey actually summed up, Kute, what you were saying.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Being aware and honest with ourselves, non-judgmental, acknowledging the truth, truthfully honest, if you eat shit. But then we got a question from Moti, and Moti have been following the Hangout on the stream, saying that, you know, he seems to be very miserable in his job. Moti, correct me if I'm wrong, just keep typing. And he goes like, I'm aware that every day I ask myself, what's the worst that can happen, and why am I not taking the next step? And he seems to be not able to do that. How does he do that?
Not able to take the next step?
Second step. The second step. How do you make the second step? Once you're honest and aware, how do you make the next one?
Yeah, honest, aware, Feel your feelings, feel all those feelings. You know, there's honesty, then there's awareness. Whoa, awareness of what you're living, awareness of your conditioning of what you're doing, and then it's important to feel all those feelings you suppress, the fear, the anger, the resentment, wow, the hatred I have towards my mother, I have towards myself, all of that stuff, the self-hatred, the anger, the resentment, to feel that and release that, because so much of that is suppressed inside of us, and we are not even aware of the stuff that's inside of us. And it then plays out as self-sabotage, procrastination, plays out in so many ways.
Hold on a second. This is very sad because you started to pause for a second. You started giving the answer and then you started freezing, so we didn't hear the answer at all. So what I'm hearing you say, what I hear you say is like you have to be aware and then move to the feeling part and start feeling everything that you suppress.
Honesty, awareness, and being willing to feel all that stuff that you've learned to suppress, that really cover up our light, that cover up our true essence, that seemingly disconnect us, doesn't really disconnect us, but covers up the light from shining. And to feel it, because all those unfelt things will block our ability to fully shine, to fully resonate, and to feel it. Then we have to be courageous to take action. You know, many times, I'm not sure what Marty's situation is, but many times we know what we need to do. We need to have that conversation. We need to make that leap. We need to leave that job. We look, it's great to pray. It's great to meditate. It's great. But there comes a point where you have to take the action.
Yeah.
And be courageous enough in the real world, you know, to say, I'm not going to pick up the shit and eat it anymore. I'm not going there, you know. And but here, what often blocks us is the mind.
Yeah.
You know, we have all these thoughts of fear. Don't do that. It's dangerous out there. You know, as anyone probably listening dealt with the thoughts in the mind. We have 65,000 thoughts a day, most of which are the same as yesterday. Thoughts running. And the mind is often, which is conditioned in and of itself, is constantly selling us, don't go there. You'll never survive. You're going to be homeless if you leave. You'll never find another guy like that, another man, another woman. The mind is constantly going and going. And here's the thing, understand this. If you believe everything your mind says, you will never be successful. If you believe everything your mind says, you will never be successful. And hear this, just because a thought is in your mind doesn't mean it's real. But many times we have a thought in our mind, boop, oh, must be real. I'm not enough. Oh, I'm not enough. Okay, no, it's just a thought passing through. It's not necessarily reality. Just because a thought is in your mind doesn't mean it's real. So, observe the mind. And many times the mind comes up with excuses. My mortgage, stability, how are we going to survive? You know, I think there's a bottom line that we must be. Nothing is worth your happiness.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing is worth your happiness. And I think we have to choose. It takes courage. It takes courage to be happy. It takes courage to follow your dream. It takes courage to transform your life. It's not for the faint of heart. It's easier to go to work, TikTok, put your head in the sand, and then just go unconscious, you know, fill yourself with food and just zone out and live your life and distract and watch 17 hours of TV a day. Okay. But to really say, I'm going to wake up in a world that is constantly distracting and conditioning and trying to get your attention, it takes courage to say, I will break free. I will break free. It takes courage. So Marty, who's listening, Marty, you know what to do. And the reality is, if you want some inspiration, know that you will die very soon. You don't know when that moment will come. It could happen today. It can happen tomorrow. We will all die. Question is, how do you want to die? Yes, you're afraid of the next step. Of course, it is scary. Life is scary. Life is a risk. But at the end of your life, to me, it's not whether you're going to die. It's did you live? And you might fail, but if you don't take the step, you have failed anyway. If you don't take the step, you are dead anyway. So I say, take it. It's scary. And anytime you are, and I think it's important for everyone to know, anytime you are expanding outside of your comfort zone, expanding outside of, there's this illusion, the fact that, well, I'm going to do my meditations. And look, I've been on the spiritual path for a long time, been meditating since I was 6 years old, okay? So there's an illusion, well, I meditate, I'm going to be spiritual, and all my challenges will go away. Anyone that tells you that is lying to you. All of my challenges will completely go away, and life will be full of rainbows, and you'll never have another problem if you just do this technique. No, it's not true. Someone is just trying to sell you something. The reality is life is full of challenges. Life is full of challenges. Ups, downs, death. The Dalai Lama will one day die. The great Babas of India get cancer, divorce, death. This is life. To me, it's not good or bad. It's just life. You understand? So we must be willing to face it head on. It's challenging. It is challenging. So our prayer is not to try and necessarily make life easier, but we must pray. We must work. We must do the yoga, the practice, the meditations. We must work on ourselves to expand our capacity to deal with life, to surf the waves. For those surfers out there, you surf the big waves. It's not like, wow, you become a better surfer and you go, wow, I've become Laird Hamilton, Kelly Slater, I'm going to now paddle in the swimming pool. No, you go looking for the big step. You go looking for the big wave.
Pause a second. So first of all, Moti, I love that you acknowledge that. This is really great. Take the next step. Kute, I think this is what separates you from most motivational speakers. Most motivational speaker will sell you the red pill, but you're going like, no, it's in you. You know what it is. I can ask you questions to help you find it. But then once you find it and you feel it, you're going to have to take action. And
most of us do know.
Right? Facilitating that discovery process. You're not telling people what they need to be or who they are, but you're allowing them to discover it for themselves.
Yes, most of us, we do know. And I think if we're honest, there is an intelligence inside of us. You, me, Christine, Gandhi, Moti. There's an intelligence inside. Moti knows. I know. We often know. But we often don't listen to that knowing. And I think we have to have the courage to listen to that knowing and take the step. It is scary. Whenever you are expanding outside of your comfort zone, doing something that will require you to grow, there will be some fear. The illusion is that you have to transform yourself to the point where you feel no fear. I feel no more fear. No, it's not true. Embrace the fear. Feel the fear. Acknowledge the fear. Welcome the fear. Place your hand over your heart and say, yeah, I'm afraid. It's okay. And I'm going to walk through this door anyway. To me, this is courage. What's required is not being fearless. Fear is just an energy. What's required is the courage to feel the fear, to acknowledge the fear. But in your heart, no, I need to make this step. There's no guarantee. Look, there's no guarantee anyway. None of us really know what's going to happen anyway, ultimately. But to feel the fear and say, I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm going to courageously move forward. It takes courage to be alive. To wake up every morning, walk out of your front door when you drive on the street and there is nothing separating you from the other car coming towards you and you don't know who that person is. It takes courage. It takes courage. I was in Cambodia years ago, and in Cambodia there was Pol Pot, the regime, millions of people killed in the genocide. I was with an amazing tour guide woman who I hated. I hated her guts tremendously. She was so mean to me, in fact. She was so mean the whole day, and I judged her and I hated her. And she was telling me about the history. If you don't know the history, research the history of Cambodia. The dictator came in, killed 3 million people like that. And I asked her, so where were you? She said, I was 8 years old when they came for me. I was like, whoa, when they came for you? This woman I had been judging as mean, and she was so angry. She said, I was 8 years old, and they marched us up north for 3 months, took me from my parents. I didn't know if I was going to come back. I started crying because I realized that as challenged as she was, what it took for her to even wake up every morning, what it took for her to take a step, what it took for her just to, not kill someone was amazing. So yes, life is scary. Love is scary. Opening your heart is scary. It's a risk. But this is why we're here. This is the journey of life. And to be compassionate with yourself in the process. And if it's too scary to take the big step, then at least make that one small step, and then maybe that one small step is write the email, and do a little bit every day.
Yeah. Christine?
So for anyone who is on this Hangout, watching this live or even afterwards, I want to acknowledge each of you for whether you've attained your goals or not, whether you have exceeded what you thought was possible, whether you're just beginning. To me, it doesn't matter. I want to acknowledge each of you, number one, for being alive. Your soul has had the courage to incarnate into this life, knowing that this experience is going to be challenging. I want to acknowledge you. And many of us listening here, many of you listening, you have had challenges. You've had experiences that you could use as excuses to not go for your dreams, your visions, but still you're reaching for the light. And I want to acknowledge you for your courage, because it takes courage to be who you are in a world that gives you so many reasons to not be. So it's an honor to be on this planet with each of you.
Thank you. Do you have some time for another question?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, okay, cool. Christine, unmute. Yeah, Christine Brown.
Hi, Ifat. Hi, Kute. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I am jacked out of my mind right now. Ifat, thank you so much for asking me to join. And Kute, this is such an incredible honor. There are not many people that I would jump on to an HOA with glasses, no makeup, and a T-shirt. But for you, absolutely. Thank you for your presence, for your light, for your energy. I've been connected with you on Twitter since 2009.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've always been highly in touch with your audience, including me. So thank you for that. Thank you for being who you are.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, I feel like you are opening the book of my life at this moment and reading it and sharing it with the entire world. There's so many things that you shared tonight that I have discovered about myself in the self-discovery process. I believe that being on this HOA tonight is not a coincidence. I definitely needed to hear the things that you're sharing tonight, as I'm sure a lot of people. For me, my question is, I firmly believe that I'm where I'm supposed to be at this point in my life, but I can see there are, my message is mindset. And the message is mindset because I know what I have to deal with on a daily basis to keep myself focused, purposeful, and living fully. I just want to see my external world align with what's going on in here. So I believe that I'm ready to step into the greatness. So what would be your advice for someone like me who's aware? I do feel I know what my purpose is. I do know what my purpose is, and I'm ready to take that next step.
Yes. Number one, you know the steps you need to take.
And yes.
Yeah. Right. So you know the next the next step that you need to take. And what I would say is take it. Take it. It may not be a straight line. Success is not a straight line. And if you just simply take that, your responsibility is to take the next step. And in that next step, you'll see what shows up. And life will give you feedback. Many times what stops people is we trying to figure out all the steps out. And just take the next step, see what's there, and you'll see what shows up. And from what shows up, that life will reveal to you what's next.
Yeah.
And then you take one more step, and then life will reveal to you, Christine, what's next. And some of the things that you might be trying to figure out, you won't be able to see from your perspective right here, right now. So some of those things around the corner that you'll need to take the next step to go, oh, now I see what's there. And in taking the step, you will develop the muscle to become even stronger to fulfill the next step and to fulfill the destiny that clearly your soul is seeking to fulfill in this life. Because you have gifts. You know there's gifts that are seeking to express through you. And I'm going to remind you simply, because I'm just you, a manifestation of you in this moment, a part of you that you've called into this conversation to remind you of who you already are. It's just yourself speaking to you right now, that there are people, there are souls around the world that are waiting for you, that need to hear your message in only the way that you can uniquely deliver. So trust that. They need to hear it, in the way you can deliver it. So trust it and allow it and take one step. Life will unfold. Just see, most people don't take that step. Take the step. Yes, it's scary. There's been so many times I've been terrified. Because, okay, let me just take the step.
Yeah.
And you just keep taking one step.
I believe you and I receive it and I thank you. My question is, I know this, like you said. Yes. I'm aware. You're reminding me. What's stopping me from taking that one step that will get me there?
Yes. What is stopping you?
What is that?
What is stopping you? What is stopping you?
I don't know.
See, just sit with it for a moment. What is stopping you from taking?
My instinct says fear. It's fear.
Fear
of my greatness.
Yeah, sit with that for a moment. Fear of your greatness. Fear of your own magnificence. Fear. And sometimes it is scary because there's a kind of responsibility, that comes with stepping into your greatness. So I would say really investigate, since we have limited time, I wish we had more time, but really sit with, what is my fear? Fear of my greatness. Sit with that. Sit with that. What's that fear of my greatness about? Where did you get that? Maybe there's somewhere where you learn to hide, where you learn to play small, to make people feel comfortable, to have someone feel comfortable in your life. What's that about? Because see, even in that fear, there's often a positive intention. There's often I'll say it this way, there's often a positive intent behind that part of you that isn't taking the step. It's trying to protect you. It's trying to keep you safe in some way. So really kind of investigate that part of you that is afraid, because there's some fear. You don't have to let it stop you, and make friends with it. And my invitation is that you actually, as you are honest with, this is what my fear is. I won't be loved, I'll be judged, whatever it is for you, is that you actually then love that very part of you that is holding you back. Because many times we judge that part, like, what's wrong with me? But to actually love that part of you that is holding you back a little bit, because to love that. And loving that part of you that's actually holding you back is the key to you actually moving forward. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. Thank you.
So just sit with that.
Thank
you. Thanks so much, Christine. That was awesome. I'm thrilled that someone that has followed Kute for so long was able to meet with him face to face. So Twitter to Google+, yay!
Yeah.
Kristen, unmute my friend.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for letting us be here and just soak up your energy.
Hi, Kristen.
One of the things that really struck me was when you guys were talking about how you're programmed, and it struck me that yes, we can be programmed, but we can also be reprogrammed and reprogramming ourselves. And I just wanted to share that and ask a question.
Question?
Cheryl Deuce asked, and it's my question, she answered it perfectly. How does this relate to being a parent? And will following a path ever conflict with being a parent? There are situations where where parents don't together, and they go opposite directions, and choices have to be made far, far away. And of course, every parent wants to be as close to their kids as they possibly can. Their path is moving them to New York City to be, involved in this firm or whatever. How do you resolve that? I don't know.
Okay. I had a hard time hearing you. Can you translate the question?
Yes, I think we're talking about relationships where the parenthood, the partnership divorce, and one parent is taking the kids away, New York, California, and stuff like that, and the other parent is left, with the desire to be with the kids. Is that right, Kristen?
Oh gosh, my sound is going bad now. I'm gonna change my bandwidth.
Okay. So I think it's about the need to be with your kids as a parent and not being able to be with them. Is that right?
Yeah, like if paths go opposite directions.
Yeah.
And we just live in a complicated world now where battles are real, and they're very scary and concrete. We'll have to deal with them. Your path is to be part of this writing.
Kristen, hold on a second. Just turn off your camera and let's just do audio.
Just so we can hear your question.
I'll go all the way off. Okay. Is it better?
A little bit.
Wow. Okay. It is slower. Okay. Tell me if you can understand.
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. So if parents that are divorced or separated, they're dealing with custody issues, and one person's path is taking them to a whole other area, across the nation. They want to be with their children. It seems like a very difficult thing because we can follow our path, but where do we draw that line? Because our children will always be our path. Like, where do we draw it between professional path and our duty to our children?
Sure. I'm kind of making out your question, what Yufat said and what you said. Look, I think it's never an easy thing, and I don't know if there's ultimately a right way to discern. But I believe that the more you clear your conditioning, the more you clear yourself, the more of a clear vessel you are for your soul to live you, to express through you, to move through you, to guide you. And all I will say for now is, if you are true to your soul, not your conditioning or your desires on the surface, I want to do this, I want to do that, but if you're truly listening to your soul, if you're truly listening to the deeper dimension of your being and following that guidance, I believe that the deepest level, you will always be guided in the right action. And our souls are serving each other, and to me, life is a process of remembering who we are and waking up and realizing who we really are. And we incarnate with different relationships to serve us, and everything is really in service to, we're all in service to each other's evolution and waking up. So I believe if you truly, sincerely follow your soul and let your soul guide you, that it will also serve everybody. It will serve everyone's soul journey. It will serve everyone's highest evolution. No relationship will last forever. That your soul is on a journey, your partner's soul is on a journey, your child's soul has a journey, and your child is a soul, and you are responsible as caretakers to assist them in growing and becoming more of who they are, but ultimately they are not yours. They come to you through you, and have their own evolution. And I think the gift you can give them is being the most enlightened, transformed being you can possibly be, because that will be a gift you give them and a clear space you provide for them, and to follow your most authentic soul guidance as you can, because that will serve them, because they chose you. You know, they chose you because they're like, this is the perfect person to assist me in learning my own soul's lessons. They chose you. So I believe that as you follow your soul's highest path, it will serve them and also give them the experiences that they need in this life to become more of who they really are as well. So I'll just say, trust your soul. And at that level, we are all connected. You know, we are all communicating. We are all one. We are all in communication at that deeper level, that it will serve them. You know, I know couples that stayed together and were miserable and were completely unhappy and were afraid, oh my God, if I divorce, you know, then it's going to destroy my partner. But the actual breakup served their partner's evolution the most, and was the very thing necessary that was challenging, that sent their partner on a spiritual journey, on their spiritual path, and as a result, their children as well. So follow your deeper soul, not your mind, you know, not your fears, but your soul.
I love that. You've been so gracious. We've been a little bit over time, so I just want to let everybody know this doesn't have to end here. You guys can rewatch the Hangout, but you can also get 2 audio training and a meditation. Tell me about that, Kute. This is a transformation meditation thing, right?
Yes, as an audio training, as to, you know, over the years I worked with many clients one-on-one at my seminars, weekend, Bali, India, and really started to look at why do we suffer and what causes suffering in our lives. And so I created a training. It's a free training. They're probably about an hour each. That really assists people in understanding the nature of suffering, why we suffer, and how to end suffering and overcome suffering. Because I believe that pain is a part of life, but suffering happens because there's often certain things we are resisting, certain things we're doing within ourselves, much of which we're not even aware of. So it's a great audio training. And there is a meditation that I started practicing and developed quite a few years ago that has really been inspirational for me and helpful to me, and I think many others. So you get that as a free gift as well.
And it's the surrender meditation, and it's very, very short. I think, was it like 3-4 minutes, right?
3 minutes. 3 minutes, something you get to listen to every day. And it's, thanks, I think Christine's saying is fabulous. But it's really, really quite special. So, absolutely.
So thank you so much for your time and your free gifts and your wisdom and everything that you shared here with us. What is the best way for people to stay in touch with you, follow you? I know you're big on YouTube. Anything else?
Yeah, I have many videos. You can come to my blog, my website, Kute Blackson, www.kuteblackson.com. My blog is on there, kuteblackson.com/blog. I'm constantly posting, probably every 7 to 9 days. I post a new video with a topic. I think we're coming up with one tomorrow. How to make big changes in your life. And really about transformation. So I'm constantly posting videos and inspiration on my website. You can find out more also boundlessblissbali.com, my event in Bali.
Talk about that. That is so interesting.
We'll have to come back.
We'll have to come back. This is amazing.
And I have an event coming up, I think, in May, the Man Breakthrough Experience for women. And so all those ways, it's all on my main website, but would love to stay connected. There's Facebook. I'm always on Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook is our F word here, Kute, just so you know.
I didn't say that. Google Plus. I'm now on Google Plus.
There you go, Google Plus. He's gonna bring you. So thank you so much. I mean, you've been more than generous. This is so helpful, and it's perfect for the new year. So guys, if you want 2015 to be a little bit different than 2014 and the previous parts of your life, take the first step. Whatever it is, take the first step. And we'll see you in the other Hangouts. Thank you so much, Kute.
Much love.